Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on demand care for common ailments such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org. Idaho is a big state and it covers a lot of territory. Idaho Matters wants to take you to every corner of the Gem State by visiting all 44 counties. And we need your help to do that. Email us your story ideas at idahomatters@boisestate.edu for our new series we're calling Idaho 44. And be sure to join us each weekday at noon and 8 on Idaho Matters and travel the state with us. More Idaho Matters now from the studios of Boise State Public Radio News. I'm Gemma Gaudette. We've had a visitor over at the station lately, a wild turkey who seems to enjoy roaming around our front door. And if you've been spotting wild turkeys as well, Idaho Fish and Game wants to hear about it through a program they're describing as Pokemon Go meets birding. So coming back for its second year, the project, which is actually called Turkey Tracker, asked Idahoans to help biologists monitor turkey populations through a simple digital survey where the information gathered will be critical in making sure the birds can thrive for the years to come. So joining us now to talk more about the project is Jeff Knetter, Fish and Game, Upland Game, and Migratory Game Bird Coordinator. Jeff, nice to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So folks who aren't familiar, give us an overview of the Turkey Tracker.
So a general overview would be that this is, kind of a platform that we've developed in coordination with other states across the country to track turkey productivity through time. Initially, biologists acknowledged the fact that data wasn't comparable across all states and among regions, and so there was an effort to kind of standardize a protocol. And in our case, we used a platform on the website or on your cell phone that helps folks from the public report those observations. And through time, that helps us track trends and in turkey populations and productivity.
So, Jeff, before this project, Idaho actually didn't have a formal turkey population survey. So, why was it important that Fish and Game create one?
So, like many other species in Idaho, it's a state trust species, and we want to be able to best manage that population as best as we can. And so, it was important as it was something that was identified in our turkey management plan as to identify a better way to monitor populations. And this kind of coincided with the development of this standardized protocol at a nationwide level. And really, that came together. And we were really, really intrigued by the opportunity to engage the public and work with citizens to collect data from the general public. And it's really taken off and done really, really well.
So, throughout the year, you're collecting two types of data, a summer survey and then a distribution survey year round. Can you talk to us more about the difference between the two?
Sure. The data that we're collecting year round is really about distribution. And so that's telling us where the turkeys are on the landscape within the state of Idaho. The data that we're collecting in July and August, so the observations that perhaps you would provide and in those months, it's really important to identify hens with poult. So those young birds, that's the index to productivity, and that's the information that's really important to help us determine trends over a long time. Productivity is what really drives a population. So if the number of poults per hen is increasing or really high, we can anticipate that the population will be growing or be at a high level, and vice versa. If the number of poults per hen is declining through time, we can expect a change in population in the opposite direction.
So, Jeff, why are the months of July and August so important for tracking turkey populations?
So July and August are important because that's when those poults are most observable. And so the hens will be nesting throughout the spring. Those poults hatch, and they're just more visible on the landscape. And really, the July and August time period is part of that standardized protocol as well at the national level to identify productivity for wild turkeys across the country.
So there's an app, right, that folks can use to report a sighting. Can you talk to us more about that and how folks can get involved?
Yeah, you bet. So, folks can access it on the Idaho Department of Fish and Game website. There's a little search function there. You can type in turkey tracker. And from there, you can download the Survey 123 app, which is something that you can download onto your smartphone. You actually don't have to download it. You can just report your observations either from your web browser or from your smartphone. But really, the main points are the date that you make the observation, the number of turkeys
Mhm.
that you observe, and we're going to ask if it's or you're asked to identify whether it's a hen, a male, or a tom. As well as the number of poults that are identified as well. So it's really pretty simple and easy. And then we also ask for the county, but beyond that, there's no specific information that would, for example, tie that information back to a specific observer.
So last year, there were more than 1,400 turkey sightings reported through the tracker across Idaho. Was there anything notable that you learned from this data? And I have to say, I never knew there were that many turkeys in Idaho.
I would say there are a couple things that stood out to me when looking at that data. And when you look at overall productivity, for example, the number of poults per hen that was observed at a statewide level, it was about 4 poults per hen, which is quite high when you compare that to numbers from, let's say, North Carolina. That number is closer to 2. So very, very high productivity was one thing. And then you mentioned you weren't sure that there were 1,400 turkeys in the state. Well, those 1,400 observations represented over 7,000 birds that were observed by members of the public. So those were a couple of things that stood out to me.
So coming into the second year of the program, Jeff, what are you hoping to build off of from that first inaugural survey?
So what we're hoping to build off of is continued engagement from the public. This is an example of a cooperative management effort. Really, we're relying on members of the public to report these turkey observations, and ultimately we want to better manage the resource. And that engagement from the public really helps us, along with harvest information that we obtain from hunters, really helps us improve our population estimates and especially trends in population throughout the state.
So, are there threats facing wild turkeys today? And if so, what would you say the biggest ones are?
That's a really good question. And I guess a little bit of context is that across the South and the Southeast in North America, turkey populations have seen kind of a dramatic decline since probably like the 90s or so. Number of turkeys have
Hmm.
gone down, hunter success has gone down. And so, really, this was an attempt from Idaho Fish and Game to try and track populations when they're at a fairly high level so that if there are any changes, that we can capture them. So, threats that are being identified in other parts of the country are habitat fragmentation and loss. Certainly something that we see as we have an ever expanding population here in Idaho as well. So I would say the biggest threat to Idaho wild turkeys is habitat loss, and um, that's probably the biggest issue that we face right now.
Hmm. Why would you say that it's important that the average Idahoan participates in an effort like this?
Well, one, I think is kind of fun. I've really been impressed by the level of participation that we've seen, and I've also been really impressed by folks like you reaching out. I think this is probably the fourth or fifth time that I've been contacted this year. So it not only does it seem like it's fun, but people seem to be interested. And so I think anytime
Hmm.
that we can engage the public in something that's interesting and associated with the natural world, all the better to have a greater appreciation for the resources that we have in the state of Idaho, as well as to just engage with our state agency and help improve knowledge of a species.
Well, and I have to say, just over social media in the last couple of years, I'll see people posting, pictures and video of like we've got a wild turkey in our neighborhood, and it's in the suburbs, right? So is that something we're seeing more of as well? Is that, because of the growth that we're seeing, that, I mean, their habitat may, as you said, maybe it's fragmented, maybe they're finding other places. So, you might have a turkey in your front yard.
Yeah, it's not uncommon at all. I recently found out last week that there's a bit of a social media following for North End turkeys, and I didn't realize that. That was something I was unaware of. Um, and so yes, I do think that in some cases, birds may get squeezed out of a particular area. However, Boise's a great example where, we've got um, the beautiful grain belt that runs through town, and so the turkeys
Hmm.
use that as well. And so I'm sure people have observed deer, occasionally elk, the occasional moose wanders into town, and turkeys, I think, take advantage of that corridor, and sometimes they end up in a neighborhood, and hopefully they stay out of trouble most of the time. But they're pretty adaptable critters, and yeah, when I guess one thing I didn't mention about the app is that folks do have the opportunity to submit a photo, and there are a large number of photos that do come from urban areas.
So before we go, Jeff, if someone wants to get involved, can you remind us where they should go for more information or if they want to submit those turkey sightings?
You bet. And I think probably the easiest thing for most folks to do is just to go to our Idaho Fish and Game website, which is idfg.idaho.gov. In the search bar, just type in turkey tracker, and that'll take you to our website where you can easily find the information or the link where you can enter your observation of wild turkeys. And we certainly encourage folks to participate. We'd love to be able to keep the level of participation at least where we were last year. As of this morning, I think we had somewhere between 8 and 900 observations. So we're
Oh.
doing really well with about a month to go.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today. We've been talking with Jeff Knetter. He's Fish and Game Upland Game and Migratory Game Bird Coordinator. We've been talking about how Idaho Fish and Game has brought Pokemon Go to birding with their new Turkey Tracker program. You've been listening to Idaho Matters from Boise State Public Radio. I'm Gemma Gaudette.